It was not easy for Eala. She had to deal with a lot of the, the Siegemund tactics.
What a test that was for last year's breakout star, Alexandra Eala. 3 hours 20 it took to get past the world number 54, Laura Siegemund.
Some matches are decided by who hits the better shots. This one was decided by who kept their head better. Laura Siegemund came into this Miami Open second-round match with her full bag of tricks. The time wasting, the umpire complaints, the bathroom breaks at the worst possible moments. Alex Eala watched all of it calmly and then won the match anyway, in 3 sets. Drop a comment below. Oh, you think Laura Siegemund's tactics crossed the line into genuinely unsportsmanlike behavior? Or is this just competitive gamesmanship that every player should be prepared to handle? Tell us what you think.
There's to be no escape act in the second set for Laura Siegemund. That's an excellent response from Alexandra Eala. Right back in this match. And a decider incoming.
Let's just call this match what it was. It was not a clean, straightforward tennis contest between two players trying to outperform each other on the court. It was a 3-hour psychological battle, where one player spent the better part of the afternoon doing everything in her power to disrupt, delay, frustrate, and mentally destabilize her opponent. And where that opponent responded by winning 6-0 in the second set, 6-0 in the third, and walking off the court with her composure completely intact. Alex Eala beat Laura Siegemund 6-0 in the first set tie-breaking. Going to Siegemund, then 6-3 in the second, 6-3 in the third, and the scoreline does not begin to capture what actually happened in that match.
Crazy match, and like I said in the final set there, Siegemund had chances early, Eala took her chances early, and that was the difference, really. That Siegemund just got a little bit annoyed at herself that she didn't take those early chances, or at least didn't take those chances to get back in it. So many deuce points, so many advantages for both players on the serves, and man, it was just a marathon match. And of course, Siegemund was playing those tactical games. She was time wasting a little bit. She was, getting a little bit agitated. Getting the umpire involved. She does all those things. And Eala, mentally strong throughout, just kept her cool and just played the game. And that's what she did very, very well in this one, which could have easily gone to Siegemund.
From the opening games, it was clear that this was not going to be a normal day at the office. Siegemund arrived with a specific game plan that had very little to do with hitting winners and everything to do with controlling the rhythm of the match. Not through superior tennis, through disruption, repeated pauses between points, complaints about crowd movement, arguments with the chair umpire about distractions that may or may not have existed, an unusually long service routine that stretched every exchange by several uncomfortable seconds. The kind of behavior that experienced players deploy when they know they are in a competitive match and they need to find ways to stop the opponent's momentum before it builds into something unmanageable. The frustrating part about these tactics is that they work, at least initially, and in the first set, Eala was actually the sharper player. She was dictating rallies, moving forward confidently, showing zero signs of the rust that might have been expected from a player who had been in San Juan for FIBA qualifying tournaments rather than on hard-court practice facilities in the weeks leading into Miami. She looked comfortable, she looked ready, and then the disruption started to accumulate. Every time Eala built momentum, something interrupted it, a long pause, an umpire consultation, a complaint about a spectator entering the stadium at the wrong moment. None of these things is individually match-altering. Together, they create a specific kind of friction that makes it genuinely difficult to stay in a rhythm. The first set, which Eala should have controlled, ended up in a tiebreak. And in the tiebreak, with the rhythm already fractured and the match already feeling choppy and disconnected, Siegemund found her level and took it. That is the exact moment when this match could have gone in a completely different direction. Losing a set you should have won, especially in the tiebreak. Especially against a player who spent the whole set trying to make you uncomfortable, is a moment that tests something deeper than technique. It tests whether you understand what is actually happening, and whether you can adjust not just tactically but mentally. Eala's response to losing that first set was the most important thing she did all afternoon, which is saying something given what came after. Because then Siegemund left the court for a bathroom break. 12 minutes off the court at the start of the second set, after already spending the entire first set disrupting the flow with every available method. The timing was not subtle, it was not a coincidence. It was a calculated move designed to cool down whatever momentum Eala might have been building mentally after the first set ended, to reset the match on Siegemund's terms, and to make sure that when play resumed, Eala was stepping back onto a cold court against a refreshed opponent who had just spent 12 minutes preparing for a different tactical approach. What Eala did during those 12 Minutes off the court is what separates the mentally strong players from the ones who crumble. She did not pace. She did not get visibly frustrated. She did not complain to her box or shake her head at the length of the wait. She sat down, she reset, and she made a decision about what the second set was going to look like regardless of anything Siegemund did from that point forward. When Siegemund finally came back and play resumed, Eala looked like a different player. Not because her technique had changed, because her mindset had reset completely. She came out in the second set, playing with a clarity and a focus that had not been fully present in the first. She stopped reacting to the disruptions and started playing through them. When Siegemund went through her slow service routine, Eala waited patiently and then hit the return she had planned. When Siegemund engaged the umpire, Eala bounced ball and prepared for the next point. She refused to be drawn into the timeline of anyone else's agenda. The second set was 6-3, and it was not particularly close. The score suggests a contest. The actual tennis suggested a player who had found her level and was simply executing, while her opponent's primary strategy, disrupting the rhythm, had stopped working. The reason it stopped working is worth understanding. Siegemund's tactics are effective against players who respond to disruption emotionally, who get frustrated and tight, who start pressing on their shots because the match is not flowing the way they expected. Once a player decides to disengage from the psychological component entirely and just play tennis point by point, the tactics become powerless. They are designed to get into your head. If you refuse to let them in, there is nothing left. Eala made that refusal very clearly somewhere between the end of the first set and the start of the second, and Siegemund, who had spent an entire set building a psychological advantage, suddenly had nothing to work with. The third set followed the same pattern. Siegemund tried to slow things down again. She tried the umpire again. She complained about spectators entering at key moments. The officials, who had been watching the same match for over 2 hours, recognized what was happening and gave her significantly less patience than she had received in the first set. The crowd, which had been enthusiastic throughout, understood the dynamic and made their feelings clear, and Eala played through all of it. The third set was 6-3, identical to the second. Same outcome, same calm, same refusal to be anywhere other than exactly where she needed to be mentally. The match ran past 3 hours. 3 hours of interruptions and delays and psychological pressure from an opponent who is genuinely experienced at making matches uncomfortable and who has used these tactics successfully against some of the best players on the tour. Coco Gauff experienced something similar from Siegemund at the US Open. The repeated delays, the time violations, the arguments with officials. The situations are not identical, but the behavioral pattern is consistent and documented. What was different here was the response. Gauff was visibly affected by the situation in ways that created match drama. Eala was not visibly affected by anything after the first set. She reset, she competed, and she closed the match out with a kind of efficiency that makes 3-hour battles look deceptively clean on a scorecard. The handshake at the net told the rest of the story. Siegemund offered a brief, perfunctory exchange before walking quickly away, no acknowledgement of the battle, no recognition of what Eala had produced. The visible frustration of a player who came in with a specific plan, executed it as well as she could, and still lost because the opponent proved mentally stronger than the plan anticipated. 4. Eala specifically, this win carries significance that goes well beyond the round of 64 result it produces. This is the Miami Open. This is the tournament where her story began. Last year, she walked in as a wild card ranked 140th in the world and beat Yelena Ostapenko, Madison Keys, and Iga Swiatek in succession before reaching the semifinals. She is seeded 31st this year. She has a first-round bye. She is on center court. James Blake confirmed before the tournament that she and Joao Fonseca would get the main stage treatment throughout because the demand from their respective fanbases requires it. She enters this match against Siegemund with everything to prove to nobody. She has already proven she belongs here. She has already beaten the world's best players on this court. The question heading into every match at this tournament is not whether she is good enough, it is whether whatever version of pressure, disruption, or difficulty a specific opponent brings can knock her off her game. Siegemund gave her one of the most difficult possible tests in terms of managing match conditions. The delays, the bathroom break at the worst time, the umpire consultations, the manufactured friction designed to make the match feel impossible to control. Eala handled all of it and came through the other side with a straight-face 6-3, 6-3. Second and third set scoreline that looked almost routine given what was happening around the tennis. That is what mental toughness looks like when it is real rather than when it is described in a post-match press conference. Looks like winning the second and third sets of a 3-hour match, 6-3 and 6-3, against an opponent who tried everything she had and still could not find a way past a 20-year-old from the Philippines who had already decided she was not going to lose her head. The victory cry at the end of the match was earned. Every second of those 3 hours was in that sound. The patience, the restraint, the controlled focus, the refusal to react. All of it came out in that one moment when the match was done and there was nothing left to hold back. Eala advances. The Pinoy army in the stands celebrated like the tournament had already been won. The center court atmosphere at Hard Rock Stadium delivered on every expectation that James Blake's court assignment decision had created. The road ahead includes significantly tougher matchups. The potential third-round rematch with IGA Swiatek, who Eala beat on these very courts 12 months ago, is the match everyone has been circling since the draw came out, a potential quarterfinal against players who are fully healthy and competing at the peak of their games, and beyond that, the possibility of a final against Irina Sabalenka, the world #1 and defending champion who is chasing the Sunshine Double. All of those matchups require exactly what Eala showed against Siegemund, the ability to stay present and controlled when the conditions are not clean, and when the opponent is doing everything they can to take you out of your game. Not every opponent will use Siegemund's specific approach, but every match at this level of the draw brings its own form of pressure, and Eala just demonstrated, across 3 hours of deliberate disruption, that she processes that pressure and converts it into clean, effective tennis. Siegemund tried to play the game within the game, Eala played the actual game, and the actual game won. 3 hours of time wasting, bathroom breaks, umpire arguments, and manufactured disruption. Alex Eala watched all of it, reset at the end of the first set, and won the next 2 sets 6-3 and 6-3. That kind of mental strength does not make you believe she can go all the way in Miami. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your prediction in the comments right now.